This is Jaron Smith from thepixelsmith.com, and today I'd like to share with you the first part of a three-part series on mastering the pen tool. I'm going to start in Illustrator, but the techniques I'm going to show you will work in Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, Flash. Most of the Adobe applications that have a pen tool work almost exactly the same way. So I'm going to make a new document. To start off with, I'm going to choose one of the print settings. I'm going to change my units of measure from points to inches. I'm more used to that. And I'm just going to give this the name Practice 1. I'll click OK. Everything else was set by the preset. And if I look in my Layers panel on the right, I can see that I have Layer 1. I'm going to rename that to Practice. I just double-clicked on the name, and that makes the field editable. I pressed Return to finish editing the field. Now I want to bring in a template file, and I want to bring it in so it's placed below the practice layer. That's File, Place. I'm going to navigate to my file, which is on my desktop, Mastering the Pen Tool. And I want to start with straight lines. This is a Photoshop document. I'm going to highlight it once. That's going to activate the buttons on the bottom. Links to the file rather than embedding it, so the Illustrator file remains small, but I have to keep this Photoshop document that I'm linking to on my hard drive in the exact same location, otherwise Illustrator loses that link. So I'm going to turn that off. What I'm going to turn on though is Template. Template's going to place this new document onto its own layer, place it below my current layer, Practice, and it's going to lock it so that I can trace over it without tracing on that layer. And as you can see, a new layer. It has the name Template on it, it's italicized. If I were to double click on the empty space to the right of the layer name, I'll see that what's happened basically is that the template checkbox that is available for every single layer has been turned on. This automatically locks it, makes sure it doesn't print, but makes sure it shows up, and it dims the images by default to 50%, usually making them a little easier to work with. That dim effect only works for pixel-based images you've placed. If you've drawn lines in Illustrator on a layer and then later turn that layer into a template, those lines won't be affected. I'm going to highlight my practice layer, and I'm just going to zoom in on my first example. To zoom in, I'm going to press the spacebar and the command key. This is going to toggle my active tool, whatever it may be, to my zoom tool. And I'm just going to click and drag with my zoom tool, and when I release, whatever's inside that zoom box is going to be enlarged. If you're on Windows, you press and hold the Control key and the spacebar. On Mac, the Spotlight search feature is also Command Space. Depending on the order you press the keys in, you can either open Spotlight, like so. That was holding down Command first and then pressing Space. Or you can press Space first and then hold down Command to get your zoom tool. I'm going to hide my Layers panel because I really don't see it now. I just want to make sure that my practice layer is highlighted. I'm going to take my selection tool. Before I activate the pen tool, I'm going to hit my selection tool. I'm going to click in the background, in the empty area of my document, and this is going to change the control panel across the top to the generic options that I get with my selection tool. I'm going to activate my pen. Before I use it, I'm going to want to turn my fill color off, so I'm going to click on the fill color box and choose none. I've got my stroke color set to black, that's fine. I'm going to raise my stroke weight a little bit just to make it a little easier to see. Now I have this line labeled, so all I've really got to do to make a straight line is click at each point where I'd like to have the line begin and end. So that's the labels here, and every time I click, the program's going to draw a new line. This is called a rubber band, this little preview line that pops up following your pen around. It's just there to help you figure out what the lines you're going to draw look like. It's basically a visualization tool. So I click at each point where I would like the line to end, effectively in this case at each corner. The program, as I click with the pen tool, creates a anchor point. Specifically because I'm clicking and releasing, these are called corner points. They basically create straight lines. Now the problem is if I try to do something else, the pen wants to keep going. I'm going to press Command Z, that'd be Control Z to undo for our Windows users. And I need to stop the pen. The simplest way, at least in my opinion, to do that is to simply hold down the Command key and then click on any empty space. This activates the selection tool, and when you click, it deselects your line. And now the pen is ready to create a new independent line. To see my second example, I'm going to press and hold the space bar on my keyboard. The space bar toggles your active tool to your hand tool, and I can just click and drag with my mouse to pan around my viewport. Now this line's a little different. For some of these lines you have perfectly horizontal and vertical lines. So here, again, I'm going to start the same way. I'm going to click and release my mouse at point 1. I'm going to hold down Shift, and this is going to force the pen to create an anchor point that is exactly 45 degrees or 0 degrees or 90 degrees. So it's going to force it into a 45-degree increment. Now if I'm trying to make the line between points 4 and 5, I'm going to run into a problem because it's not a 45-degree line. So I let go of the Shift key. I click at point 5, then again at 6 to finish my line. And then again 7 to 8. These are perfectly straight lines. So I'm going to hold down Shift again and then click at each point. Again, to end that line, I'm going to hold down the Command key and click on any empty part of my document. This tells the pen to stop. One more time, I'm going to hold down my spacebar to pan down to my third and final example. I'll start at point 1 to point 2. That's not a 45-degree line, so I cannot hold down the Shift key. But from 2 to 3, that's perfectly 90 degrees. 3 to 4, same thing. 4 to 5. Then to 6, then to 7. Now to complete this shape, this arrow, I'm going to hover over the first point I made, and if you look next to your pen tool, you'll notice that there's a little circle icon, and it only pops up when I'm right on top of the first anchor point I made. That circle indicates that when I click, I'm going to close the path, creating a shape. I'm going to zoom out. That's Command 0 or Control 0 for Windows users. The first two examples I did here are called open paths. They're basically lines. They have a definite beginning and end. The third example, the arrow, this is a closed path, a shape. It doesn't have a beginning and end. That's the difference. Every path you make can either be open, a line, or closed, a shape. And that concludes our first practice on working with the pen tool to create straight lines. In my next tutorial, I'm going to cover how to use the pen tool to create curved lines. And the one after that, I'm going to demonstrate how to use the pen tool to make a series of custom shapes like little icons. So the first two lessons are designed to break down how the pen can be used in various situations, just to isolate how the pen itself works. My third lesson is going to be a little more practical, so you'll have a little more fun drawing cute little things. Again, this is Jaron Smith from thepixelsmith.com. Thanks for watching.